Hello, welcome to Her Journey Home. I'm your host, Sophia Noel Graniella. My mission here is simple: to hold space for honest stories and conversations that are usually left unsaid. This podcast is for the women in seasons of becoming, rebuilding their lives, reclaiming their voice, and remembering who they were before the world told them who to be. So come as you are, and let's begin the journey home together. Everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Her Journey Home. I have a very special guest on today's episode. I am so freaking excited to dive into this conversation. Her name is Steff. She is a biz and personal branding mentor. And yeah, we're going to really talk about just how she has gotten off of the traditional path of success and really created her own incredible personal brand that's extremely rooted in her own values and authenticity and her amazing personality. So welcome, Steff, to Her Journey Home.
Oh my gosh, what an intro. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and have this conversation. So thank you for having me on, and everyone listening, hello.
Oh my goodness. You guys are in for a treat, because I was just telling Steff before the episode started, like, she really has created such a beautiful brand in the sense that she stands out in like a sea of sameness, I like to call it. On social media, right? There's just a lot of, Chat GPT and AI and a lot of people kind of saying the same coaching lingo. And what has always stood out to me about Steff is her authentic energy and like expression, and the way that she shows up online is very much who she actually is. And so we're definitely going to dive more into this today, but I would love for you to just introduce yourself, but in a way of, imagine someone who's just meeting you. Like, how do you describe your energy, your journey, your work? Like, how did you get here?
Oh my gosh, love. Yeah, so it's quite a journey, but I'll start with like my energy. And actually, you know what? I'm going to start with by saying thank you for such a beautiful compliment. Like, off record, I said, like, that is genuinely the most profound compliment someone can give me, is standing out in a sea of sameness. So thank you so much. For someone meeting me the first time, in terms of like my energy, let's definitely start there, because I think that's such a big encapsulation of like my work, of like energy and identity, and who you are outside of the business definitely comes first. So I would say my energy, for someone that doesn't know me or is meeting me for the first time, is very playful, very curious, but also very piercing in that. I would say that I'm a very soft person, but also with like a perfect garnish of like being quite direct at the same time. So my energy, whilst it's inviting, I would love to say, it's also something that you automatically feel like you can be yourself, because I have this like directness to be myself, which is something that I think I have learned and been able to cultivate online, which is really awesome. And like, I'm not perfect at it. I'm still like finding my way and stuff, but I would say that's definitely my energy. And yeah, I'm a big hype girl energy. Like, I like translate, I would say, like the kind of conversations you have a bit tipsy in like a girl's bathroom kind of vibe. Like, I'm going to hype you up, but from a genuine place as well. Like, I'm not going to do that and then be like, oh my God, like behind your back. I'm genuinely so passionate about women in general. I just think we're the coolest things ever. And I love to see women win. I love to see women's unique palettes and just everything that they are. So that really comes through in my energy. And in terms of, by the way, everyone, I'm coming off the back of like a horrible cold, so just excuse my Miley Cyrus congested voice, which we kind of love. But there'll probably be times where I'm like struggling to breathe. I promise I'm okay. I'm just on the back of a cold. In terms of my work, yeah, so I would say exactly what you said: business mentor, personal branding mentor. But on a more specific level, I would say I very much blend creative direction and content work and business ecosystem work with personal development. I came from a personal development, trauma healing background. That's the first type of coach I was, if you want to say it like that. I found coaching because I went through a breakup, and my whole life just changed. And I remember at the time, I just wanted to have this like glow up. Like I was like, I will show you what you've missed. And I remember I met this coach actually because in person, because I was hungover and vomited next to her car wheel. And I had to go inside because she was dating my boyfriend's at the time's roommate and be like, I'm so sorry, I've actually vomited next to your car. And she was like, you need my work, basically. But long story short, I got initiated into like the depths of personal development, shadow work, trauma healing, went through all of this stuff, and it just completely changed my life. And someone that's always been very curious and had a background in psychology, I was just like, I want to do what she's doing. It changed my life. I had insane results. I kind of took that leap from a place of ego to begin with, but obviously we alchemized that shit. And yeah, I was like, I want to do that. So that's kind of what led me into like trauma healing and working with women, feminine embodiment, working with masculine and feminine polarities. And that was very much my niche at the time. So coming from a background of personal development and also mental health, I'm always infusing that into creative direction to be able to emulate authentically online. So it's less like, let me teach you how to like have perfect messaging and, you know, all of that kind of stuff. Like, yes, that's a bit of a high level byproduct of what we do, but I blend creative direction and branding with the woman, with the founder, and like implement that personal development, if you will. So essentially my work is very much like helping women become like, stop performing and really start expressing themselves through those ways. And a lot of the women I work with are very multidimensional because I'm a very multidimensional person. There is so many facets and layers to you that a lot of the women I work with, for lack of a better way of putting it, struggle to show up online because they don't want to show one facet and they feel that 2D energy. So I help them bring like 7D energy into the online space. On a high level overview,
Oh my gosh, it's so good. That's one of the best stories ever about vomiting near her tire. I'm just like, the fact that that's what sent you into like the entire personal development realm is freaking amazing. But I really, really agree that you can do like the perfect messaging and the strategy. And I mean, even me, myself, I invested so much into all of that. And it was like, actually, the first thing you need to work on is your authentic energy and expression, because once you have that down, everything else will flow. But if you're still hiding or performing or not showing up as like that full version of you, then the messaging doesn't really matter, right? It's like, because you don't even know who you are, like what you stand for or your values. It's like, and the multidimensionality is everything. Like
100%. Like you will just build on quicksand. And I think it's a journey that every creator and business owner goes on naturally. Like the way that you show up online to begin with, it will always be different to who you end up showing up online as like a few years down the track. So it's a natural journey, and it's important not to shame that if you are in a space of like, oh, I've realized that the version that I'm showing up as isn't authentic. It's a natural journey that you'll go on, whether it's intentional or not, kind of thing. But it's so important because otherwise you will build on quicksand and you'll realize you're building a curated version of yourself that just has you showing up online feeling like disconnected. There's a level of depth that you're not able to connect into. There's a level of like vulnerability, hangover, overthinking, overanalyzing, perfectionism. Like all of those are very much symptoms of what it can be like to build a brand on quicksand and like not do that identity piece first. So it's so important. It's inherent. And yeah, I'm very, very passionate about it. And you said it so beautifully just then as well.
Oh, it needs to be a requirement, honestly. Like there's just too much noise out there in the coaching industry of like, here's how to get to 10K months and like all these things that's missing the identity piece. And I only learned that through my own journey with content creation of like, wait a minute, this doesn't feel good. I feel like I'm in a box. Like, ew, why am I doing this when this isn't actually who I am behind the scenes? And so I'm so glad we're talking about this because I think more women need that permission slip of like, you actually get to just be you and create content that feels really good for you and like who you are as a person.
It's allowed. And in a world where you're probably told a lot of rules and you're in an echo chamber of shoulds and coulds and woulds and like this will work and this won't, your way is 100% allowed and the best way. So yeah, couldn't have said it better myself.
Oh, amazing. Yeah. So good. And I'm really curious. I want to know now a little bit about your journey with really embracing this multidimensionality as your gift, right? Because oftentimes I think, especially when we're trying to fit into like this traditional path of success, right? The way that society tells us is the right way, or the way that our friends and family have done it. But like we just know inherently we're different. Like we have all these beautiful facets and layers of ourselves. And maybe there was some shame around that, or some embarrassment, or we were taught to hide, or maybe it was unsafe like it was for me, right? I'm really curious because I know you kind of went down that traditional path for a while. How did you finally own your multidimensional gift? Like, how did you say, like, no, this is who I am and I'm claiming it?
Yeah, I would say I'm very open-minded, but I'm also like quite a stubborn person. So like if I'm told something I genuinely don't want to do, like I can very much be like, no. So like it's pretty cellular in my personal journey, like as in like started very, very young. Like I was so good at convincing my mum to let me have a day off school. I remember once I wanted to get my hair done in this particular salon that was in Richmond, and I'm in Melbourne. And a lot of your viewers probably have no idea about Australia, but long story short, it's probably like an hour drive away. And I was like 13 at the time and wanted to get my hair done. She's like, no. And then the next day I was on like this 6 a.m. bus to go and get my hair done. And I was grounded for like a week. Like that was this, I guess you can call it like this rebellious energy, but it was never rooted in like disrespect and not having an honoring towards my parents and stuff like that. It was very much just rooted in curiosity and determination and wanting to know how I work, and I was very set in those ways. So that's something that I think I've brought with me in my business journey. So even if the ecosystem and the structure of my business, maybe part of me, wasn't built in a way that was authentic, I still expressed it authentically. And that I think just came down to being tapped into my inner child from the start. So that was probably how from the very get-go, I brought my inner child into my business. So that's definitely a core pillar, is like being really connected to your inner child and actually healing your inner child through your business, not from a toxic lens, but allowing her to play. And then as I kind of went from traditional into a just do whatever can I swear on this? Do whatever the fuck I want kind of way. I always ask for permission because I'm like, I don't know, like I remember this feeling that I would get in my body when someone told me something that I knew wasn't right in my body, but in my head I thought maybe they were right. Like it was this feeling, like for example, if I was told I needed to pick one thing, the feeling I would get in my body was like visceral, and I would instantly lead to confusion. It would just chip away at my self-trust. And it was a different feeling that you would get when, if we're talking like shadow work and, you've been told something that's a truth that maybe you're not really willing to accept yet. And there's like this, like that's normally your portal into a different part of yourself. But it was different. It was like this feeling like of just like confusion, and it would make me upset to hear these certain things, like that you have to niche down or that you can't do something a certain way. Like the feeling was in my body. Like it would be like, ugh. And I had to learn that the things people were telling me I couldn't or shouldn't do were actually my genius. I just had to give myself permission to do that. Noticing where I judged myself as well. Noticing that the things I judged in myself were actually my genius. And the only reason I was judging them or thinking that they were like confusing or inconsistent is purely because someone else told me that. And I 100% think anything that you can 100% put down to being someone else's voice is most likely not true. Like, and not yours. So the fact that like there was no way in no place in my own psyche for that being like my truth, I was like, well, it must not be my truth. Like the only time that's been true is like coming out of someone else's mouth. So it doesn't have to be my own. And that's when I allowed space to see my genius and just embrace it, and like embrace this messy and embrace the vulnerability that would come after sharing that. And I started to speak about it and take action, even though I didn't have evidence that that was all true. And the feedback I got, I guess you can call it the validation in that, which obviously we take action, and there was this fierceness that I really felt within myself for doing it before that. But I did start to receive feedback and validation from other people that it was relieving for them to hear that. It was relieving for them to know that they can be multidimensional, they can change their aesthetics, they can have multiple aspects of their personality in their online space. And so that was enough for me to just be like, not only do I have my own experience with this, but it is evident that this feels extraordinary for people. This feels refreshing. It's a breath of fresh air, and therefore it must be true and it must be real. I also let go of the timeline around that and just gave my permission to evolve in that way publicly, instead of feeling like I had to do it all behind the scenes as well. And the last thing I'll finish with around that is, I remember peak lostness, like peak, like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know who I am online. I remember I listened to a podcast. I can't remember what it was right now. I think it was something to do with Tony Robbins, but he basically said to like visualize your own funeral and like attending your own funeral and, you know, look back on your life. And I just had this moment of, if I was to look back on this journey, on this entrepreneurial journey, without any understanding of how long it lasts or what it really, really means, how do I want to show up and what do I want to experience through it? And the biggest thing that came through for me was just fun and exploration and curiosity of like, okay, yes, it's an income, but what if I could use this experience of entrepreneurship to just purely get to know myself and other people and embrace exploration through that. And that was like a really strong thing that came through. And so that just gave me full permission to just have fun and be curious and just like fucking try it all.
Oh my gosh. It's so powerful too, because it's such a big permission slip for other women that come into your world that have maybe always kind of thought like, oh gosh, like what if I embrace my multi-passionate self? Like maybe people will think it's chaotic. Or if I remember when I came onto your page and I was pivoting, right? And I always had this idea of like, oh, if I pivot, people are going to think like something about me, right? Like they're going to make it mean something about me. And I was like, but what if my pivoting is not because of lack of trust? It's actually because I'm evolving and I'm actually getting closer and closer to my authentic truth. Like, what if that's what my pivot is? Because I'm in the middle of a little pivot now, and it's the most real and passionate and lit up I have ever been. And so at first I was scared of like, oh my gosh, what are people going to think? And then I was like, wait a minute. Like you said, like if I get to 90 years old and I look back at my life, like what do I want to be known for? How do I want to feel about how I actually showed up for myself? And it's like sometimes the pivoting and the allowing your multiple like dimensions and pieces of your personality and layers is actually the best thing that you can do for yourself, because it's like you don't have to be in this little small niche, right? And I remember like when you said like the visceral feeling when you were told to do it a certain way, I had very similar experiences. It was like, but that doesn't feel good for me. And unfortunately, I didn't have the discernment at the time to trust myself. So I just kept on doing the things that I was told would be the best way. And of course it never worked, right? Because our way is the best way. Like for anybody listening, mentors are so important to have, someone that you genuinely trust and that actually sees your vision the way that you want it to be. But don't allow someone else to tell you that their way is the only way, because what worked for one person, very likely if it's not your energy and your style and your personality, it probably won't work for you, even if they're very, very successful.
100%. And like, I just couldn't agree more. And if someone genuinely is alluding to that truth, that their way is the only way, like run. And at the end of the day, like we invest in coaches and mentors to collapse time and learn things that we don't know. And like, that's amazing, but it's a different energy. Like I'm so here for refinement and learning the things that you don't know from someone that's clearly got that experience, but it's being able to differentiate between those two things. And all of it comes down to self-trust and your inner compass. And that's like very much like you were speaking to then of like, in every area of life, it's like the things that you're going to remember about your entrepreneurial business journey isn't the money, like isn't all of these things that are outside of yourself. You're going to remember how you led yourself, how you trusted yourself, how you showed up in times, in pivots. And if no matter what, like if you earned $0 for your entire business journey, obviously not ideal and not that's not going to happen. But it's like, at least you can say that you trusted yourself, you were head over heels in love with how you were going through it. And I think that's just such an important key piece. And that comes from like your inner relationship as well. So that's something to have strong and foundational before taking on all this advice.
Yeah, which is why the identity piece of it is so freaking important. And like with that being said, like you said something earlier about like, you know, investing money probably when you didn't have it or a little bit too soon. And it was a similar thing for me. It's like you're investing because you want to get answers outside of yourself and you're hoping that someone's going to come in and like give you the magic plan that's just going to like change everything in your life. When in reality, everything you need is within you.
100%, like definitely. I mean, I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for some of the mentors, I say some,
Yes.
that I have invested in, but I can confidently say that the reason they were so helpful to me is because of the relationship that I had with myself to take on their advice.
Exactly.
And also as well, speaking to your own experience with your pivot that you're currently in, that is definitely something that I learned as like a serial pivoter. Is pivoting adds depth. It doesn't damage the brand. That's a really important thing that gave me permission, is it adds depth and layers to what I was creating and it doesn't damage. Like I think that's the thing that we're taught unconsciously, is that pivoting and changing is damaging to what you're building and your audience, but it couldn't be further from the truth. And yeah, of course, there's ways that you can pivot that, you know, make a bit more sense in a way. But yeah, it's a really, that was something that I really had to find home in, is that it wasn't damaging to what I was building.
Oh, and it's such an important message for all the women listening, because there really is that narrative out there in the coaching world of like, okay, if you pivot too much, you're going to lose these people, or people won't understand it, or it means that you don't trust yourself. And it's like, I've just flipped the script and I started to say like, what if this actually just means I'm evolving as a human? And like you said, now I have more depth, and everything I did prior led me to exactly this moment. So it's like, that's just not a true narrative. And I think everything, we need to be very discerning about what we take on as our truth. And again, foundation of self-trust, like that has to come first.
100%. And also as well, I realized for me personally that thinking that pivoting was confusing was a very self-fulfilling narrative. And it was my brain's way of trying to keep me safe in my current reality of my business. And like, it was self-fulfilling for myself and my ego to be like, I'm going to confuse people. No. One, half of the people, if not more, do not give a fuck that you are pivoting your business. And they do not care. And two, like the other people are too busy in their own lives and emotionally and intellectually intelligent to be able to understand why you're pivoting. Like, it's just like, why are we taking the power away from our audience when we're pivoting?
That is so important. I was thinking about this the other day. It's like, why do we assume that people are stupid and have zero emotional intelligence? There are so many coaches that like will, like I was in, like there was this image in my mind ingrained of like, okay, I can't show my personal life. I can't do this. I can't do that because it's going to confuse them. Like I learned that from people. And then I'm like, wait a minute, like the way that I invest in the human behind the brand. I want to know what your lifestyle is. I want to know if the life that you're living is the life I want to live, because then I want to learn from you. And so it was just all so ass backwards. And I'm like, why am I taking this on as my truth? Because this isn't even how I invest.
Like, literally, yeah. It's the stupidest thing. Like, it's just silly. Like, honestly, like, it's just silly. And I think, yeah, it's all those rules that you're just like, what? And those are those key things that once I just changed, and whether it was like the beliefs, how how deep they were, I don't know. But once I changed those little things and changed those perspectives, I just instantly started showing up more authentically, because I was like, I started seeing like the humans on the other side of the screen. It wasn't that I wasn't seeing them, but I was very immersed in my own business. But yeah, like treat your audience as highly intelligent humans that they are, and you will show up more authentically.
Oh, best piece of advice. Like, if you take away anything from this episode, like write that down in big letters in your notebook.
Yeah.
So that leads beautifully into my next question, which I want to get more into like the personal branding side of things. So what does it actually look like to build a brand? You used the word home before, which I love. Like, what does it actually look like to build a brand that feels like home, that really embodies like who you are as a human? I love like the humanness of brands and taking yourself out of the box, like especially for the women listening that maybe did niche down and it felt really suffocating, or maybe the women that have worked with coaches that have told them like, that's not allowed and you can't do this and all the bullshit that goes on. What does that look like?
Let's talk about what home is first, because I think it can be something that's thrown around a lot. It's like, come home to yourself, build a brand that feels like home. And I think this is something that's nuanced, because home for a lot of people can be a touchy subject. You know, some people don't know what it's like to have a home, or like, you know, and that's why I think it's important to talk about what home is in this. And in terms of my interpretation is like, building a brand that feels like home is something that's quite calm in your nervous system. It's like a safe zone. It's the place that you go in the meditation when you're thinking about a safe place. So maybe home for you isn't like four walls and a roof. Maybe home for you is the person. Maybe home for you is a season. Maybe home for you is a memory. And that's what I want you to think of when you think about building a brand that feels like home. On a journey of building a brand that feels like home, I think it always starts with healing the part of you, whatever that has looked like, that thought you were too much in any way, shape or form, or not enough, or too hard to love. That is where I started, and what I continue to do to ensure that my branding and my personal brand feels like home is constantly checking in with myself to be like, who I am and how I express myself is so worthy and so me. It's not confusing. It's not unworthy. It always starts with that. And that's an ongoing journey. Like, it's not just something that you're like, oh, yeah, cool. That's definitely where it starts. And then building a personal brand that feels like home is calming your nervous system. Like, there's something about it that, you know, you're able to show up online, post a story, post a reel, post a post in your unique tone from your unique perspective, and not be shaking at the knees after you post it. To not feel worried constantly about what other people think. You're still going to worry here and there about what people think. You're a human with a psyche and an ego. Like, it's not about eliminating that, but it's about making majority of the time a space where you're not having that visceral like experience. You're not disassociating and scrolling for 3 hours after you post and things like that. You don't dread posting. You don't dread talking about what you want to talk about. A personal brand that feels like home is not relying on things like social media trends and constantly looking at what other people are doing and falling into comparisonitis. It's translating your truth first and then maybe checking out what other people are doing. Like, again, we're not shaming that. It's a normal part of the business social media experience, is to like, so we can't even freaking help it. Like, even if you're not following anyone on Instagram anymore, you're still going to have, like, your feed now is literally mostly people that you're not following. So even if you try and unfollow people, you are still going to be faced with that. So yes, building a skill set amongst that to not let that kind of stuff get to you. But your brand is rooted in you. Another thing I like to say is if a personal brand that feels like home has a lot of through lines rather than cages. So there's this through line that is connecting the different pieces of your facets and more specifically speaking to that is like, you know, you could have your personality traits, you could have the things that you do and that you sell, you could have your different content pillars, and there's a through line between them, but it still sounds like some sort of like symphony, like when you play the music. That's what building a personal brand is, I think, in terms of feeling like home. And I think as well, when a personal brand feels like home, what I always love to say is like, it feels like your past, your present, and your becoming are all in the same place. Like there's a space for who you used to be online. And sometimes she still comes through. There's a space for who you are now and what you're passionate about now and what's true for you now on your morning walk. And then there's also a space for who you're becoming and your like half-cooked ideas and the things that, you know, maybe not aren't your zone of genius yet, but you're still really passionate about it. They're all in there. Like the things that are your zone of genius and they were a past version, and then your present and your future, they're all in the same place and they all have a space. That's when you can really feel at home in your personal brand. And it depends on your brand as well. But for me specifically, my brand is like, it's no different. How I show up online is no different to if I've had like a glass of my Pinot Noir and garlic bread and I've just like voice noted my best friend about something. Like if you watch my stories, that's like the energy that's going to come through. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that. It's about basically like your online version of who you are. And because that's unique to you, it's a personal brand. And when it is feeling like home, it feels like and looks like what I just mentioned.
Oh my goodness. This episode is an entire masterclass. Like genuinely, there's so many like incredible, juicy little nuggets that I'm like, wow. I
Oh,
think
thank
this
you.
feeling of home is so beautiful. It is like that calm nervous system. Like you're able to show up and infuse all these aspects of you. And I'm so glad that you said like the past version of you, the present, the one that's becoming, like they can all exist. Because I think for a lot of people, it's like when we start to evolve, we almost want to like hide or discard that past version that showed up because we're like, oh, it's cringy. Like, I don't even want to look at this. But there's still
Mm,
aspects of those parts that are really important to infuse into the brand. And so it's
100%.
like, I'm so glad you said that because I think oftentimes, like when we're shifting identities and we're growing and evolving, it's like, oh my gosh, like I'm embarrassed of that like past version. So it's like there gets to be space for all of these versions of us.
Absolutely. And it just gives you freedom,
Yeah.
especially in the middle of a pivot where you're like, oh, well, I'm still passionate about part of me talking about those things. They're still a big part of my life, but now I've changed branding, so I don't think I can talk about like it's just no, 100% like creating space for it all. And within that, it just speaks to the notion that it's human. So you've
No.
got to have space for it all.
Oh my gosh, I couldn't agree more. And it's like all the rules that we create for ourselves, like we actually create a cage for ourselves. And it's like, why are we creating all of these rules when like there are no rules? Like we can just burn them all to the ground and just realize that like we are these multidimensional humans and we are allowed to be who we are. And we're all different from one another. So like what one person does and what another person does doesn't need to be what you do. And like, oh, this a whole episode is just like the word that I keep seeing is just like permission. Like permission to take
Permission.
up more space, permission to be multifaceted, permission to talk about the messy middle, like all the things.
Yeah. And also, what came through so strongly as I was listening to you say that was for anyone listening to this episode and you have high standards for your brand, and this could look like maybe it's in the aesthetics, maybe it is in congruency, like you really want it to be professional at the same time. And this is a question I get asked a lot is like, how do you keep that and have a strong personal brand? Is like that part of your brand and your personal brand can coexist. And all of the things that we're speaking about doesn't equal like a drop of standards, doesn't equal like, you know, not being able to have like the parts of your business that of like what you sell and things like that. This is just being able to explain in your unique way how you do what you do. So it's emerged in those other aspects. And that's really important to know of like, you know, if I speak for myself, is like I have a chaotic, messy, brilliant personal brand, if I say so myself. But it's also like I still have a way of being able to articulate what I do and sell what I do in a way that's up to my professional standards. You can have both.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you brought that point up, because I think sometimes when we think of like multi-passionate, and again, the chaos that we, associate with it, then we also think that like the visuals are going to be chaotic, and then it's like all of a sudden it's going to be messy. It's like, no, it doesn't have to be like that at all. And I think both you and I are very good examples of this, right? It's like we talk about different things and we have different personalities, and like our pages still look good, and like you still feel a certain way when you land on one of them. And so
Absolutely.
this then brings up another question that I know holds so many freaking people, especially women, back from like sharing their voice online, from showing up authentically, from just starting, is this idea of like we have to have all the pieces and we have to have it all figured out. And it has to be like the right time before we put ourselves out there, right? Like we have to be qualified enough to do it. And so like what would you say to a woman listening to today's episode that's like, oh my gosh, I just have to have it all figured out and then I'll finally start?
Become okay with figuring it out publicly. Is like vulnerability builds deeper trust than perfection ever could. A million times over. And vulnerability might look like for you showing up before it's figured out, showing up before you finished a course, showing up before you know everything about that subject, showing up before you've picked the right font. Vulnerability to share certain aspects of your life or share certain stories. Whatever vulnerability looks like for you, that will build deeper trust than what you think the right standard is ever could. And, you're still allowed to have a really great ethical front. Like, obviously, when I say, like, show up before finishing your course, I'm not saying take on 10 clients and, like, unethically perform. I'm saying share your experience of where you were at. Share what it's been like to start that journey. Share that you are on the journey. Being okay with learning and being a beginner and being new to something. And if you are someone that is struggling with that, do something outside of your business to build that skill set. Don't rely on just learning it in business. If anything has taught me in life and in business let me rephrase. If anything has taught me in the most powerful way how to be a beginner, it's my hobbies outside of my business. So then when I show up in my business, sharing a story about my life or my journey of being a beginner or whatever it might be, feels like a freaking piece of cake because I've just slammed the concrete. And rocking up to a skate park and it's all of these skatey cool dudes and I'm just there like head to toe in fucking knee pads and elbow pads looking like a twat. Like, tell me something like that won't humble you. So do things outside of your business that teach you the skill sets that you're currently learning to do in business. And showing up imperfectly as a beginner before you've had it all figured out is a very great aspect of doing that. So, like, try something new outside of your business. And honestly, it sounds quite simple, but do it anyway. Because your vulnerability and action is going to build deeper trust and more momentum than perfection ever could. And yeah, I think that's at the end of the day as well, to like give you another reason is like, especially in 2026 now, like people want to see your journey and people want to see your story. It really builds resonance because there is a lot of fatigue in the coaching industry. That's not like a definitive truth, and it does depend on who you ask. But I think if we really zoom out, like at the end of the day, like there is a lot more coaches than what there was 10 years ago. There is a lot more people using social media and stuff. So a really profound way that you stand out online is by being able to share your unique journey, because no one else will have that. And if someone's clicking on your story, like no one else can replicate that. And then I think as well, what can be really powerful for someone in that stage is like, you're really not alone in that transition. Like you're not alone in building it. And we have all been there. And do not compare your step 1 and 2 and 3 to someone's step 15, 16, 17. Like literally, what is the use? What is the point?
1,000%. I actually just recorded a podcast episode on stop comparing your year 1 to their year 10, because you're comparing something and you do not know what they went through to get to where they are. You didn't see all the times that they had failed businesses and all the times that they pivoted and all the times where they cried themselves to sleep because it was hard and they were scared, right? Like you don't see that. And so
Yep.
it's like allow yourself to be a beginner. I think that's so important. And I
Mm,
always kind of like have this image of like a little girl riding a bike. You didn't just like get on a bike and do it without training wheels and you're just like this amazing bike rider, right? You fell down, you scraped your knees, you got back up, you had training wheels, and then you retired them. And then all of a sudden, a year later, 5 years later, you get on a bike and it's like you can do it with your eyes closed. And it's like you
absolutely.
have to be willing to fall down and you have to be willing to put yourself out there before you're ready and push through the fears, because at the end of the day, like the growth, the business, the relationships that you desire are on the other side of doing the thing that you don't want to do.
Absolutely. And the biggest thing that I remind myself of is that leadership and success in business isn't about being ahead, it's about being honest.
Yes, I thought like that to me is what it's all about. It's like, and show us, you said something really important is like, take us along for the journey. You don't, I think there's also like this big concept out there right now of like, be the expert and the authority and the this and the that. And I think like, okay, like when you're really embodied in something and that's like the transformation you're giving to your clients, like, yes, embodiment is very important. But like you said, if there's other things we want to talk about and do in our business that maybe we're not the expert at yet, that's okay. Because people want to
Absolutely.
see the becoming. Not
A
just like,
hundred
oh,
percent.
I'm here and I'm a millionaire now and I'm successful. Like that's people want to know like the in-between parts.
Absolutely. And to give people listening like a tangible understanding of just how important it is like there is two ways to build credibility and trust online. For anyone that's like, a bit hesitant to show their becoming, and it's by showing the becoming, showing the journey, documenting you going from A to B to C to D to E. Hope I got my alphabet right there. Or coming from an authority lens. Now, these two things speak to themselves in a sense of like, if you're authority, maybe this is because you've got years in the industry, you've got the credentials, like whatever it is that has made you an authority in the space. And you speak from that lens and from that angle, or you are on your journey to becoming an authority and you're sharing the journey. Like either way, they build an immense and extraordinary amount of trust and credibility. I learned that very early on from a mentor that is extremely successful in the social media industry. And I was learning from him for a few months and I was just like, going through similar narratives in my head. And it's one of the biggest things that I took away from him. And yeah, so definitely just like we're crushing that belief system right here, right now.
Oh my gosh, yes. And I actually think I worked with that same mentor because when you said that, I was like, yep, he helped me literally derail that entire freaking narrative.
Oh my gosh, I
And
love that.
it's so important that we really trust that because people want to see your becoming, they want to see the process, because oftentimes I think too, when we're so focused on being the authority and the expert, people can't really see themselves in our shoes. When we're actually showing the behind the scenes and the process and like the messy middles, it also shows other people of like, wow, like, okay, I can see myself, like I'm also here. And it helps people feel less alone, but it gives them that permission of like, no, I can actually show up and share that part of my journey as well and build trust that way.
Absolutely. And the right person for you in terms of the person that you attract to work with you is going to be extremely inspired by where you are at in your journey. So to you, it might feel like you're a beginner, but to someone else, you're 50 steps ahead. And so why would you want to be the authority and then attract someone that is not right for you? Like it's literally like, in a way, false advertising. You're just going to cause yourself more anxiety down the line. Like speak from your truth and the right people will be attracted from you. But for lack of a better word, one of the mistakes I definitely found I made in my business is like subscribing to that narrative and thinking I needed to be further ahead. So I was showing up as further ahead. And the only person that affected negatively was myself. Like I created these rules and expectations for myself that literally were too big and weren't true. And I was left with the anxiety. I was left not fulfilling clients how I wanted to and could have. And like, that's something that I look back in my business and I'm like, why did I do that to myself? Like, you know, the clients still loved it and they were so happy and everything like that. But the internal experience it gave me, because I was showing up from a place of ego and I was showing up as a place
Yep.
of like authority when I was still learning.
Mm.
It just made me have the worst anxiety, vulnerability hangover. And like I was the one that unconsciously knew that wasn't my truth. And you're the
Yes.
only one that will be affected by that.
Oh my goodness. Yes, yes, yes. Like genuinely, the anxiety it creates is so so deep, and it's like, why put all that pressure on yourself? Like, just own who you are, own where you're at, and people will
Mm.
respect that so much more. And also do it for yourself, because it's going to feel more fun to show up and create content and talk about the things that light you up, even if you may not be an authority in that thing.
100%. And we're not saying sell yourself short. Like, make sure the way that you're showing up is a testament to what you know and backing the shit out of yourself. Of like, okay, I might not be an authority yet, but I still know a lot. So being honest
Yeah.
with yourself about where you're at goes both ways in terms of what you do know and what you don't know yet.
I have two more questions for you.
Yeah, love.
I know we talked a lot about self trust today, because that is
Mhm.
really the foundation of building a brand that feels like home, embodying your multi passionate, multi-dimensional self. But people, a lot of times, I think, again, there's self trust is talked about a lot on the internet, but like, what are some tangible ways and practices that the women listening to this episode today can start to really trust themselves, their voice, like what they have to offer the world?
Love this. And I actually recently did a masterclass on like trusting yourself in visibility that I spoke about this, so it's so fresh. So in terms of practices, I recently needed to do this myself, and it can be quite simple, but a lot of people bypass it because we're busy humans. We may not feel like we need to. Is in the times where you're feeling vulnerable or you're shaking at the knees, what I did is I recently did a masterclass inside of someone else's membership, and I was speaking about things. And in it, I got asked a question that at the time I fully did not know how to answer. Like, I knew the answer, but at the time I just blanked, and I felt my ego kick in a bit where I was like, I should know the answer of this. And I remember saying to her, because like honesty is the best policy, I was like, I actually don't know how to answer that right now. I have to message you privately because my brain's not working, kind of thing. And people, like, everyone's going to respect you for doing that. You don't need to know everything. Like, just be honest with the people that you're helping. And after, I felt really vulnerable. And the biggest opportunity I had there was to actually lead myself and sit with myself. And that's what creates self-trust, because creating self-trust in business isn't about just making the right decisions. It's knowing that you've got your own back if you don't make the right decision, or if you do something that maybe you're not proud of, or you're feeling a certain level of discomfort. That's what self-trust is. It's not about the self-trust to do everything correctly. It's about having your own back no matter what. It's about having your own back if your launch flops. It's about having your own back if your post gets one like. It's about having your own back if you don't hit your income. And it's about having your own back if you do reach those things and you're feeling a bit unsafe in your success. And what it comes down to for me is like, I genuinely sat there and I sat in the discomfort. I sat in the shit, basically. I was like, we are rolling in this shit. And I was just like sitting there and I just felt so uncomfortable. And I just remember like closing down my eyes. And for those that are listening and can't see me right now, I'm closing down my eyes. And I literally just put my hand on my chest and I was like, you're all good. You're all good. I love you anyway. Like, I trust you. You don't need to be perfect here. And so, yeah, I guess it's speaking to like positive reaffirming, and instead of self-negotiating and self-shaming yourself, it's about really sitting with yourself in those moments. Because you can do all the affirmations before, you can do all the work, but it's how you lead yourself in those moments that's going to crystallize your self-trust with yourself. And that is the biggest thing. And I'm currently doing that with myself a lot as I like pivot a few things myself and go into a new level. I'm about to go on a tour with another coach around the entire country. And I'm literally shitting my fucking pants. Like, I'm like, this is a new edge for me. But it's how I lead myself that's going to help that self-trust. So that's a big thing. In terms of tangible things, ensure that you're not outsourcing the decisions that you make. Of course, lean into your mentors and your coaches and the people around you. But ultimately coming back to you when you're making the decision. And that could be the split second before, and just understanding of like having presence with yourself in your business. Self-trust, it can, for me, a lot of the time equals presence. So that's really important. Moving before you're 100% ready, it sounds a bit corny, but like you're going to feel fear. And if you're like, what's the difference between not doing something because it's not right for you and fear is a lot more urgent, and it's really like scary. And as soon as you give into it, it'll feel like the bear's not hunting you anymore, kind of thing. But so moving before you feel 100% ready when you're feeling that kind of fear. And a big thing for me as well is like, it's very stimulating to be an entrepreneur, and therefore you get in the vortex and self-trust becomes not a priority. But I urge every business owner to take one walk a day with no input. Like no input, no headphones. Like you've got to calm your nervous system. You've got to create space for stillness, because you are not going to be able to hear yourself in the loudness of your entrepreneurial journey unless you practice doing things without input. And so doing a long walk without input is not only good for your nervous system and things like that, but it's a good way to practice listening. It's a good way to practice mastering your mind, to be able to shut off. And at the end of the day, always asking yourself, I know I'm rapid firing here, but just like intuitively we're pinging it out, is create before consume. I have a non-negotiable that I create and post before I consume online. And I always ask myself, is this aligned or am I performing? And to this day, I will not show up online sometimes because the answer will be performing. And performing for me might look like I'm posting online because I think I have to that day because I haven't posted in a day. And there's a difference between like, you know, fulfilling your non-negotiables in business and just doing it because you think you have to. So asking like, is this aligned or am I performing, creating before consuming, like those little things inherently and indirectly really, really strengthen your self-trust.
Oh my goodness. This has been so incredible. Like you said so many things that I'm just like, yeah, I need to take that advice as well. I feel like I'm usually good about like going on my walks and sitting with myself, but when I start to get like a little bit stressed out or overstimulated, like I find myself not doing that and having too much input. And I honestly think like for anyone listening to this, your best creative ideas and downloads will come when you are just with yourself, when there's no distractions, when there's no outside noise, when you're not outsourcing your own brilliance and power is when things will come through. And I think that's why
100%.
people say like, oh, the best ideas come in the shower, because you're in the shower, you're not listening, you know, you don't have headphones on, you don't have a book in your hand, you're just with yourself.
100%.
That space.
And the last thing I want to mention too, that I've really noticed within myself is we're not talking about doing these things or embodying these things when things are convenient and easy. At the moment, I'm currently going through a big transition of like bigness, and bigness will reveal your patterns. And if in the times of bigness and busyness and loudness and leaps, if you aren't creating space for those things, that's actually your real pattern. And the reason and when you're doing things slowly and when it's easier to do that, you're checking something off your ego then. But if in the bigness and in the leaps, you're actually dropping the ball with it and they're the first things to go, they're not embodied. You're doing it because you think you have to. So that's the identity shift that you get to strengthen. And it matters most and most importantly when you are in those times. Like when I'm on tour next month, I'm going to ensure that I have time for that, because that means it's a part of my identity and not just something that's a check off the to-do list. That's when it matters most. So in the times where you feel like you really don't have time, that's when your identity comes through. So really prioritize it then.
Oof. Oh my goodness. I'm like, mic drop. Okay. We just had an entire 60-minute masterclass of pure gold. Like, please, for anyone listening, re-listen to this conversation a couple times over, because there is so much wisdom here. Thank you for sharing all of that. And I like to wrap up every episode with one question, which is, what is one powerful message that you want every single listener to walk away with today?
Build a life whilst you're building your brand, and build yourself in the process. And then I think what's second to that, which hopefully doesn't take the power away from that, is like you're not too much and you're not boring.
Mhm. That, like, I wish I could scream that from the mountaintops. Like, you are not too much. You are just too much for the people that could never accept and love your bigness and your fullness, and they haven't accepted it within themselves.
Yeah,
And so it's like, take up more freaking space. And I love the idea of like building a life with your business. Like,
absolutely.
I just, yeah, there's so much power in this conversation. And it's like, build yourself and allow all the parts of you to come online. And I always say this,
Mm.
but I feel like the parts that we like hide from the world, the too muchness, the weirdness, the goofiness, the playfulness, are the parts that actually end up becoming the things we're known for and our superpowers.
Yeah, absolutely. And like from a business lens, like you don't have to be tidy to be trustworthy. You don't have to be
Mm.
linear to be able to leverage it. And yeah, I think it's such an important slip. And like, how cool would the online space be if everyone was just showing up like this? Like, not that it's a necessity, social media is something that you can leverage and use for your own good in your own way. And there's people that would listen to this and be like, I fuck, it's not their truth. And that's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
I love that about social media. We get to embrace that, not shame that. But like, I think it would be pretty cool if like all of these women and men and like anyone at all, they, them, she, like everyone, no matter how
Mhm.
you identify, no matter how you show up, if you showed up in your bigness, in your boldness, in
Oh,
your authentic way, how cool would social media be?
it would be
I'd have to
fucking
follow
epic.
everyone.
Literally, like I had goosebumps when you said that because I'm just envisioning what that space would be like.
Oh, it
Wow.
would be incredible. So
Oh,
yeah, just a big permission slip to be yourself online. As corny as it sounds, like I hate
oh.
saying that because it's like be yourself, but
But there is a lot of truth to it. And it's like, I think
mm,
sometimes like the fluffiness might like steer people the wrong way. But I think after today's conversation, they have so much more clarity on like what home means, like how to build that self-trust piece of it and how to bring all the facets of them online. So,
mm.
oh my gosh, where can people find you? How can people work with you? Also, like this tour that you're going on sounds freaking incredible. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. So my Instagram is it's StephyJ, ITSSTEPHYJ on Instagram. That's the best place to find me and immerse yourself in my wacky, weird world. In terms of ways to work with me, my main is my membership. So this has different tiers, whether you want to come in and learn from myself on a more close proximity level, but there is all spaces as well to be not as close proximity. Like there's a few tiers there, but my membership is my world. Like it's my universe. And it's really a space where women can build that confidence and build that brand and go for their next level in business too. And yeah, the tour is really, really exciting. So outside of my coaching and outside of my mentoring, I do marketing, creative direction for other coaches as well.
Mm.
So this tour is for an incredible coach, her speaking coach, and I did all of the creative direction and bringing it all to life for the entire tour. And so I'm going on the tour to ensure that it's all going smoothly and all the marketing's right and stuff. So that's another thing that I would suggest to people is like follow your curiosities, branch out of things outside of your business. Like the reason that I am so good at content and marketing and like working with women to creatively direct a brand is because I do it for things outside of the business too. Like if you can bring those things to life with a tour or with someone else's business, yeah, it's one thing to do it for yourself, but it's another thing to be able to really do it for someone else. So highly recommend, like put yourself in rooms and spaces that stretch you. And yeah, the tour will be incredible. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that about you. That's so exciting.
Yeah, and not a lot of people do because I don't really like talk about it as much, but I think like going on the tour, I'll start posting it and stuff and show a bit of the behind the scenes process of like how I bring some stuff to life.
Oh my goodness, that is so freaking epic. Well, I can't wait to follow along with the journey and just keep being you and keep posting all the things because like I said, like we really need it in the world that we're living in. And I hope the one thing that everyone takes away from this is you're not too much and that big fat fucking permission slip to just
Yes.
like just be
Send
you.
it. fucking
Oh,
send it. Like, if there's one thing you take, fucking send it. Who gives a
fucking
fuck?
send it.
Excuse my French,
Exactly.
but like,
Oh, I curse on this probably more than the average podcast. So
like you have one life to live. Think about being 90-year-old in the bed, looking back, being like, well, at least I fucking sent it.
exactly. Exactly. Like we need t-shirts. Just fucking send it.
Just fucking send it.
Oh my gosh. Well, Steph, thank you so much for being on her journey home. This conversation was so much fun.
Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, thank you so much for creating a space where these conversations can happen. It is so incredible. You are absolutely smashing it. And I'm so inspired by the work that you do. So yeah, you keep going as well.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Well, we'll be here to support one another. And for the women listening, if you loved this conversation, please go ahead and share it with your audience. Go ahead and like, rate, and subscribe to the podcast so I can continue having these incredible, incredible conversations. And as always, I will see you for another episode next Thursday.
Bye.